Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 500. 500. Wow. July the 23rd, 2018, Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, obviously today is a sort of a benchmark for the TowerGate video series I've been doing for over a year and a half now. And so today is a little bit different, and what I want to do for today is I want to go back to the very beginning. And this is exactly what I did. I went back and looked at all 500, beginning with TowerGate Video 1 through 499, and I went back and I focused on the titles, because the titles of my videos generally are going to be the most important thing of the day that I'm going to talk about. Most of the time that's the case. So, and as I've said many times before, when you're going through these types of situations, whether it was Watergate or TowerGate or the John Tower Commission TowerGate I'm talking about, or our TowerGate or Spygate or whatever, you're going to have ebbs and flows, highs and lows, and flashpoints. So I wanted to go back and reflect over the past 500 videos and just point out some of the flashpoints so that we can see again where all this started and how we got to where we are today. And that's what I was going to focus most of my time on today. But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, we got last night, late on Saturday evening, we got the 412 pages of the FISA information regarding the FISA application and the FISA warrant that was taken out on Carter Page. And so that's going to be what we're going to be talking about in, I'm sure, probably most every day this week, because it will take some time to dig through it and get through all that. And so I'm going to spend probably a lot of the rest of the week. We'll all be talking about that. But today I did want to just talk about a couple things. Haven't really had time to look into too much of it. I've read and heard what some other people said. I want to make a few comments on that, and then I'll get to the main issue of the day that I wanted to talk about, which is the ebb and flow and the flashpoints of the TowerGate video series that I began a year and a half ago. But I do want to just touch on the FISA release on the Carter Page stuff. And what is going to happen here is I'm not going to get all this done in one video. So today, I'm sure, is going to be a two-part video. So anyway, I'll try not to waste too much of your time with the two-part video. I'll try to make it very content-rich, and but it's probably going to go into a second video because I don't think I can get it all done in one half-hour video. So let's go ahead and get started. And first thing, before I get into the ebbs and flows and the flashpoints of the TowerGate video series I've been doing and talking about that, I want to go ahead and start just for a moment and talk about the DOJ releasing the 412-page FISA application documents that were used against Carter Page. And of course, just as suspected, as we've suspected all along, and now we finally have the proof, the dossier was the number one point that they used to get the FISA warrant, and the number two thing would have been the surveillance stuff that they got about Carter Page, or the information they got about Carter Page, and maybe Paul Manafort to some extent, which is information they began getting from their informant, Halper, and maybe other informants through the British GCHQ that found its way into the intelligence community, and all of that culminated into what became an effort to get a FISA warrant against Carter Page, to use that to get inside the Trump campaign. So, you know, when I first started doing TowerGate videos, you can go back to the very beginning, you'll see that within that first week, I said, you know, this looks a lot like a Hillary Clinton operation. A lot like a Clinton operation. Having watched the Clintons for years, this is exactly the kind of dirty tricks and things that they do. So, you know, that's pretty much why I thought the first week that eventually, when we got to the bottom of this, we would find that we would find Hillary Clinton's fingerprints all over it. Then, of course, as we got farther into this thing and we discovered the dossier and Christopher Steele and all these other things, and then I said at that point, especially when when Christopher Steele had to do his first court filing, and he had to actually go on record about the dossier and how verifiable it was and all that. And of course, we learned from the early filing from Christopher Steele, the court document that he filed, that he said that it was unverified, that nothing was proven, that was unverified. It was just raw intelligence, is what he said. and he suggested it never should have been used for investigations or warrants or anything else. It was just supposed to be information given to the FBI or the CIA that they could research and study and look into to see if any of it was true. He was collecting raw data from collectors who were getting that information from. Collectors were getting it from these intermediaries and from sources. So he was like the third guy in the chain. He wasn't even speaking directly to the people who got the information, the people they got it from, or the original source. He was like number 3, number 4 man in line. So certainly he could not verify anything. And that's exactly what he said, which means that it never should have been used for any type of surveillance warrants or anything else. Okay, so when that happened back around that time, I remember saying, you know what? Looking at this, it appears they used the dossier to launch this investigation. Christopher Steele says it was unverified, it was raw intelligence. And I said, at that time, at some point, this thing is all going to come back to Christopher Steele, because this entire thing was based on using his credibility as a former MI6 agent who had worked with the U.S. State Department, providing information to them about Ukraine and about other things, particularly about Russia, because he was head of the Russia desk at one time for MI6. And so I said, ultimately, this entire thing is hanging on his credibility. He is the guy they're using to sell it. He is the poster boy for all this information that they used to get all these surveillance warrants or launch these investigations. And so it's all eventually going to come back to him. Eventually, it's all going to work itself through the system, and it's all going to come back to, well, originally it was Christopher Steele, his work, that we used to do all this. So eventually, at the end of the day, it's all going to come back to Christopher Steele sitting in front of a jury, sitting in front of a group of senators or congressmen, and them asking him questions. And it's going to come down to whether or not he will back his own dossier, his own intelligence. And we know from his court filing and from his recent deposition and from his reluctance to testify in the BuzzFeed case that Christopher Steele has not changed his tune. He's saying the exact same thing he did when he did that very first court filing. He was consistent in his deposition. He's been consistent with how he's behaved towards the BuzzFeed lawsuit. He's sticking with exactly what he said from the very beginning, which is, hey, this was never meant to be used to launch investigations or surveillance or anything else, other than maybe looking into it to verify it. It was raw intelligence. It came to me. I didn't go out and seek it out. I used collectors who went to intermediaries, who went to their sources, and where they got it, we don't know. This is raw, unverified intelligence. And you cannot go get FISA warrants and launch investigations like Crossfire Hurricane and other things based on nothing but raw intelligence, unproven information. But that's exactly what happened, and that's what this 412 pages of the FISA tells us. It tells us that they took Christopher Steele's information, unverified and raw data, and they launched FISA surveillance warrants. They launched entire investigations, launched informants and agent provocateurs into the Trump campaign. They did all this, and it all comes back to Christopher Steele. Ultimately, when we get to the end of this, and all these witnesses have been interviewed who were all a part of this, Comey and Strzok and Page and the whole 9 yards, it's all going to come back to, because of what we learned from this 412-page release, number one reason they used to get the FISA warrant, the dossier, written by Christopher Steele. It's all going to come full circle, and Christopher Steele is going to find himself sitting in front of a group of senators or congressmen or in front of a grand jury, and they're going to ask him, can you back up this information? Is it true? Can you verify it? Can you tell us it was all true? And he's going to say no, just as I said from day one. And when I gave it to the FBI, and when I gave it to the State Department, I said this is raw information. It's not proven. It's just stuff I'm getting. It's out there. Here you go. Investigate it, look into it, whatever. But they never did it. They took it and they ran with it, and they used it to get surveillance warrants, launch spies in the campaign, and everything else. And ultimately, it's going to come down to Christopher Steele's word. And he is not going to change his tune. He's already on record in a deposition and a legal court filing. He can't change his tune. He's going to tell the truth. He's going to say, I told him it was raw intelligence, that they never should have used it for all this stuff. So it's on them. It's not on me. He's not going to go down for them. And everything is riding on him. It's all riding on Christopher Steele's reputation and his credibility. That's what this is all resting on, and it's all going to come back there. Right back to Christopher Steele, right where it started. He's the man that they're going to say, can you vouch for this? And he's going to say, no, I can't. And that's when a lot of people are going to jail. And Christopher Steele will not be one of them. He will not be one of them. But all those people who signed off on that FISA warrant will be. Because as you can see on page 53, I believe it is, Peter's been stroking us, Comey, Brennan, Yates, Clapper, Loretta Lynch, James Comey, McCabe, all of them on one of those FISA warrants or another, some of them multiple FISA warrants, all signed off that under penalty of perjury, they signed their name that the information they used to the FISA court was true. So, that's how that's going to work. That is how that is going to work. Now, there's something else that troubled me after I kind of read through a little bit of it and read some stories and watched Andrew McCarthy's interview and things and such. We learn now that from Bob Goodlatte, who was on Maria Bartiromo, that they, the members of these committees, they read this. Now, the version we got is heavily redacted, but Bob Goodlatte just told Maria Bartiromo this morning, Sunday morning, that, oh, well, we read through this FISA application. We read through all this stuff a while back, and what we saw was almost completely unredacted, which means that all the stuff that we're talking about, that I was just talking about just a minute ago, including the fact that Peter Strzok is all over this in these 412-page document. He told the Congress in those hearings that he wasn't involved in the dossier really at all, or getting or working with the dossier to get the FISA warrants. He denied all that. Well, now that we see what's here, even with all the redactions, and keep in mind, Congress, according to Goodlatte, saw it without hardly any redactions. It makes me think, my God, they had Peter's been stroking us, and I realize that each of those guys only had 5 minutes. But with everything that we know, and now, from what we learn here, now it makes that testimony of Peter's been stroking us, it makes me scratch my head and wonder if these guys are really straight up and trying to get to the bottom. Because if they are, they really did a pitiful job of their Q&A with Peter's been stroking us. They did not ask the right questions. What did they do? They wanted to repeat over and over these texts, these hateful texts, which we've all heard 1,000 times. We already knew he was going to deny that they were to be taken seriously and that they were just gestures he was making, not to be taken seriously, just things he was saying to Lisa Page or whatever. And we knew that was going to be the answer he was going to give. But yet they wanted to spend their 5 minutes that they had to question him, asking him to read that quote again that you said. And take him to task over these things he said, knowing good and well he's not going to sit there and go, yeah, you're right, I meant that we need to orchestrate a coup against the president. He was never going to say that. And beating him up over that stuff, we've all read, and the stuff that he's not going to tell the truth about was a total waste of the 5 minutes each of them had. When, based on what we can see in the 412 pages, just what we've learned so far, there should have been totally different questions, and that's why I was very upset about the questions that were asked, and I said I wish I'd have been on that committee. The very first question that should have been asked of him, and was never asked by anyone on any of them committees, they should have looked directly him in the eye and said, okay, because he had studied, he had prepared, he knew he was going to get grilled on his text. Him and his lawyer had already been through that. He had his excuse. He was completely prepared for that. You should have been hitting him with stuff he wasn't prepared for. I would have looked at him, very first question I would have said to him, and I wish I'd have been the very first person to ask the very first question, I would have looked him directly in the eye and said, okay, Mr. Ben Strokinus, tell me everything that you know about John Brennan's special CIA task force, multi-agency task force, 6-agency task force, whatever. Tell me everything that you know about John Brennan's secret task force. Because he wouldn't have been ready for that question. His little eyes would have been darting around. He would have busted out in the cold sweat. He would have gotten all nervous because he was expecting a question about, okay, you said that you told Lisa Page, well, we're going to end it all. We're going to stop President Trump. He was ready for that. That didn't rattle him at all. I would have rattled his cage with that very first question. And because we now know, and many other questions, but now that we can see what some of these things are, we can see what a waste of time and what a poor job they did of questioning him. The questions they asked of him should never have been asked. He was never going to respond to them anyway. He was totally prepared. And the questions that should have been asked weren't. We learn now that he was, in fact, it's right there, we can see it, he was, in fact, one of the people involved in using the dossier to get the Title I FISA warrant. He's in the document. He's set right there in Congress, and when they asked him about it, and I can't remember which one it was, one of those guys asked him, and he denied it. He denied it. Now, if they've read this, the almost completely unredacted version, they should have known he was lying. They never should have asked him, like inquisitively asking. Did you know about the dossier? Did you know about it was being used as a fight? Of course he did. You guys, Bob Goodlatte is telling us that you guys read the unredacted version of this damn thing. It never should have been the question. Wrong question. You should have said, what you should have said was, okay, now we read through the FISA application and we know that you were involved in the dossier, using that to get the FISA warrant, and from that point go with your questioning. Instead, they asked him if he was, and he denied, and they moved on. Something's not right here. Something's not right. Either these guys are not as smart as we wish they were, or hope they were, or think they are, who are questioning, or they just wanted to, play to the cameras or whatever. I don't know. But a horribly inefficient expenditure of time in this questioning of Peter has been stroking us. Now, in hindsight, that we can see that they had all this information, excuse me, which we're just now getting. And now the questions that they ask him in those hearings looks pathetic. They were told by Bob Goodlatte, they read this months ago, almost completely unredacted. A lot of information in here that should have generated much better questions than the ones he was asked. And even if he didn't answer them, you would have rattled him. So that's just my initial thoughts. But these following individuals all perjured themselves according to the testimony they've given or the denials they have made and what we learn from this 412-page release. The following people have perjured themselves. They all signed off online on this page. It's on line 53, on page 53. There's more of them throughout the document where when they go to get these FISA warrants, they sign on a line that says, under penalty of perjury, my signature here says that these things are true, that I'm giving to the FISA court. And every single one of these people signed it. And every single one of them lied. They perjured themselves. The following. Silly Sally Yates perjured herself. Loretta Lynch perjured herself. John Brennan absolutely perjured himself. And now we know 100% for sure that he knew about the dossier long before December of 2016. He's one of the people that signed off on one of the earliest warrants, the one that was shot down in March of 2016. John Brennan, according to these documents, in March of 2016, John Brennan, Mr. Potato Head, head of the CIA, with whoever he was involved with in that group, tried to get a FISA warrant and was shot down. It was based on information that would eventually become part of the dossier. It was also based on illegal searches being done through the FISA 702 request. It was done based on false information coming from planted spies, Mr. Halper, and others. John Brennan is in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. I'm just talking about one case of perjury, one actual case of perjury, of lying under oath and lying to a FISA court. That's all I'm talking about here. I'm not even talking about all the other lies they told and all the other things they did. Just on this one issue that we learned from this release of these documents, the following individuals, if they signed on that line, which all their names are on this, that says under penalty of perjury, I so-and-so state these things are true to the FISA court. Silly Sally Yates, Loretta Lynch, get back Loretta, Mr. Potato Head, Peter's been stroking us, John P. Carlin, Andy McCabe, Rod Rodenstein, the dishonorable James Comey, and the unwitting idiot James Clapper. According to this release, every single one of these people lied under perjury of penalty to the FISA court. By the way, I'm sure you're aware that's a felony. So that's my initial thoughts, and I haven't even dug into it yet. But over the next several days, as me and other people, more people dig in and actually read, there's a lot of redactions, but again, the House committees investigating this, Goodlatte says they've already read all this a while back, almost completely unredacted. And that makes me nervous, because we should be much farther along in the investigation if that's true. I mean, they should have already done criminal referrals to the Attorney General for perjury. I mean, I just told you, these guys all signed under penalty of perjury. These following things are true. Gave it to the FISA court. And we know these things aren't true. We have known it. Why have they not made criminal referrals? Why have they not demanded a special counsel? Something. I'm not liking this. It's making me wonder if someone's running a game on us. Or else these guys that we're counting on are not as smart as we thought they were. Now, let's put that aside and let's get back to the main thing of what I wanted to do today on TowerGate. So I went back, like I said, and I'm looking for the flashpoints because I want to go through the entire history of the 500 videos we've done so far to see where we started and where we are today. And I think the most extraordinary thing for me when I did this exercise, which took a little time, what I realized is that a very large percentage of the things that we are focusing on today, these were all things that we were speculating on within the first week or two that this whole thing started. The thing is, as you can see as we go forward, is that we were speculating on all these things very, very early on, within the first week or two. It's just that the other side was denying it, denying surveillance, denying spies in the campaign, denying all this. And then when we finally proved, it took a year to get to the point we could prove they were lying, and then they changed it to and said, well, yeah, we did have surveillance, there were spies, but it wasn't political. And now we're in the process of trying to prove that it was political. So what surprised me most about going back and looking at this is how much we knew from the very beginning. And it's taken us this long, a year and a half, 500 videos, just to get to where we are. Now, there was a lot of hills and valleys and ups and downs and depressing days and days when it was very dark, when it looked like Trump was going to be taken down. Some very nervous days. We've had some good days. Some days you'll be up, some days you'll be down. We've been through a lot. So I'm going to go through these flashpoints and just so we can get a feel of this emotional roller coaster that we've all been on, who've been following the story from the very beginning. So for me, keep in mind, I had already been doing YouTube videos for a while. I had done about 125 videos before I started doing TowerGate videos. I did things on history. I did things on military history. I did a whole series on the history of the United States and Iran. I was talking about, some daily political events, things and such like that. So I'd already been doing these. But what happened was when Trump came out on, I believe it was March 3rd or March 4th of 2016, and he put out that tweet where he said, hey, I just found out that Obama had my wires tapped, or something to that effect. And that day, which was, I believe, either March 3rd or March 4th, I heard that. I got up because he tweeted that out very early in the morning, and I think it was early on a Saturday morning. I don't get up that early on a Saturday morning, okay? Probably 10 o'clock in the morning or something. I get up, I do my usual routine, get a cup of coffee, sitting on my computer. I get on my computer, and the first thing I see is this crazy tweet that Trump tweeted out, hey, I just found out that Obama had my wires tapped. Was that illegal or something like that? Okay, so I thought about it for a little while. I thought, wow, that's crazy. I mean, I certainly hope that's true, because if it's not, that really... Because people have been talking about those crazy tweets, and I thought, yeah, I mean, I like the tweets and everything, but, if you're going to tweet out that the former president and the former administration was, spying on you with surveillance, that's something you better be awfully damn sure of before you do it, or if it's not and you can't prove it, they're going to make you look crazy. and unhinged. And it's not something you really want to do. So I thought, Trump isn't that stupid. He knows this. For him to tweet that out, he must know something. So I thought about it all that day, and I thought about it the next day, and the next day, of course, after that tweet, he was getting hammered. I mean, absolutely hammered by everybody. Oh, Trump's crazy. What do you mean, accusing the Obama administration of spying on him? That's crazy. That's just crazy talk. So he was taking a lot of heat. And I thought exactly what I knew would happen. I'm thinking, man, he's taking all kinds of heat. Why do you do that? I mean, he's got to have some proof, and he better come up with some here very soon, or they're just going to kill him on this. So after 2 days after the tweet and thinking about it, I thought, I'm going to follow this story because it reminded me a lot of Watergate. And I thought, I'm going to follow the story because at the beginning of Watergate, everyone said Woodward and Bernstein were crazy. Why are you following this story? It's crazy. No one's going to believe it. I mean, Nixon, everybody knew 2 years before the election he was going to win in a landslide. I mean, why would he do it? Why would he spy on the campaign, and why would he do something that stupid when everyone knows he's going to win 48, 49 states? It would be stupid to take such a risk. And who's Woodward and Bernstein? I mean, Woodward's the guy who covers the local Metro beat. Bernstein, who the hell's this guy? So, I mean, a lot of people didn't think there was any there. And of course, there wasn't for the longest time. And it wasn't until they actually were able to tie the money that was in the burglars' pockets who broke into the Watergate Hotel, when they finally tied that money to the campaign to re-elect, Nixon's campaign to re-elect, that broke the entire scandal wide open. It was a major flashpoint. That took, I think it was after he won his landslide. And after he won the landslide, people were looking at Woodward and Bernstein and going, what are you guys doing still working on that Watergate story? No one even cares. No one's even heard of Watergate. So, I mean, Nixon just won a 48, 49 state landslide election. He's too popular. You're not going to take down a president who just won 48, 49 states with some stupid Watergate story. But it eventually happened. So, this was my thinking. So I did my first TowerGate video. It wasn't actually called TowerGate that day. It took about 3 days before I started calling it TowerGate because he didn't get specific about the surveillance for a couple days. And then it came out that what he was talking about was that they had Trump Tower under surveillance. And that's when I've been calling it TowerGate, because the surveillance was apparently done on Trump Tower, where Trump was with his team. That's where he worked out of, Trump Tower. And apparently it appears now that GCHQ was conducting the surveillance for Brennan of the CIA on Trump Tower. So, the first video I want to talk about occurred before I actually called my TowerGate videos TowerGate. It occurred, my first post was on March 4th, dealing with the subject, but not quite the title quite yet. March 4th, 2017, Obama wiretaps Trump. And the title of the video is Obama wiretaps Trump. This is going to end badly. March 4th, 2017. I titled that video, Obama wiretaps Trump. This is going to end badly. Then the very next day, I started calling it TowerGate, because we learned then that his claim was that Trump Tower was under surveillance. So March 5th, 2016, I call it TowerGate. That was actually the first actual TowerGate video named TowerGate, even though there have been 3 videos before that. So March 5th, 2016, TowerGate. And it's titled, Politically Motivated? ? If so, somebody will hang. Politically motivated? If so, somebody will hang. March 5th, 2016. That was the first TowerGate video I did that was named TowerGate. And I think it was that video that I also said that it looked like it had the Clinton fingerprints on it. TowerGate, Day 3, March the 6th, 2016. I titled that video, Comey and Clapper Deny Wiretapping Trump. March 6th, 2016, TowerGate video, Day 3, Comey and Clapper Deny Wiretapping Trump. Next video, TowerGate, Day 10, March 13th, 2016. McCain, Senator Magoo, goes on CNN, demands Trump prove wiretapping. Senator Johnny, Senator Magoo, very early on, was out there on the defense, and today we know why. Because he is an integral part and was involved very early on. He was involved back in 2015, being part of the Chalupa special group in the Senate. He sent his right-hand man, David Kramer, to also join that same organization in the Ukraine that was doing the propaganda, where they first got and stumbled on to Manafort and Page. That was taken back to the states, back to the Democratic National Committee. It was shared with them. It found its way with Magoo's people. They formed this little committee in the Senate back in 2015, and that's where the real frame-up in the Trump-Russia collusion began. And Senator Magoo was right there at the very beginning of it, driving it all. March 13th, day 10, McCain goes on CNN, demands Trump prove wiretapping. Well, Johnny, he has proved it. Senator Magoo, he has proved it. And I've proved, Senator Magoo, that you were up to your neck in this coup. TowerGate, day 11, March 14th, 2016. Did Obama use British GCHQ to spy on Trump? TowerGate, day 11, March 14th, 2016. Did Obama use British GCHQ to spy on Trump? And we now know he did. See, very, very early on, all these things we were on to. We were asking the questions. We just hadn't gotten the answers. Now we have the answer to so many of these things. And keep in mind, at that time, everyone went, Trump's crazy. His supporters are crazy. Oh, that guy on TowerGate, he's nuts, claiming GCHQ surveyed Trump Tower. Really? I was right. Back on March 14th, 2016. I've been vindicated. Right along with many of you. TowerGate, day 17, March 20th, 2017. Title of the video, Setting the Stage for Trump Impeachment. And the reason that this is important is because right after Trump tweeted that, and he didn't have the evidence, he was taking a beating. Not just from Democrats, not just from the media, not just from the intelligence community, even from Republicans. Even the Freedom Caucus at that point was sitting back going, oh. You know, even they were pretty silent. You know, they're like, oh, okay, well, we got to understand what's going on here. But they certainly weren't coming out and defending him. Nobody was defending him. Nobody. And those were dark days. I remember that. Very, very dark days, because it felt like that they were about to impeach him. I mean, they were getting enough Republicans with all the Democrats and the media pouring it on hard that, I mean, they were getting dangerously close to having enough votes to hold an impeachment hearing, and it was being talked about. That almost sunk him because he still had not produced any evidence. But he was asking it to be looked into. But no one was interested in looking into it. Who was going to look into it? The DOJ? The FBI? The intel community? John Brennan? Mr. Potato Head was going to look into it? I don't think so. See how dangerous a position that we were in back in March of 2017? It was very dangerous. I mean, his presidency at that point was on very, very thin ice. I remember it quite well. TowerGate, day 19, March 22nd, 2016. Nunes says Trump and his team were spied on. So here is when we begin to have a little fight back. This is when Nunes went over to that place in the White House to a skiff, and he looked at the unmasked conversations, probably because he was told by Trump what he had been told by Rogers. Hey, I was told by Rogers that they're spying on me, and that's why I said that. And Nunes probably said, well, I better go over and take a look at that and try to figure it out, because if not, your ass is going to be impeached. We better come up with some damn evidence And that's exactly why Nunez went there. Okay, end of part 1. Let's go over to TowerGate video part 2, and we'll complete this video. Thank you.